So I'd like to convene this meeting of the San Lorenzo Valley Water District's Engineering Committee for August 20th, 2025. Garrett, would you take roll?
Chairperson Mark Smoley.
Here.
Director Bob Fultz.
Here.
Committee member Ken Londy.
Here.
Committee member Bill Grace. Here. Francis Cleveland alerted staff to not be able to attend this meeting.
Okay. Any changes?
No.
To the agenda? Oral communications, members of the public that want to address something that's within the purview of the this committee. Anybody want to address the group? I see none online, nobody here jumping up. So let's go to new business. Tank recoatings. Who's leading here?
Yeah, I'll take this one. The district has 8 tanks scheduled for recoating in the proposed 5-year capital improvement program that was included in the budget in the 5-year CIP adoption at the June 5th, 2025 Board of Directors meeting. The current budget includes recoating Blair Tank and Brookdale Tank in 2026, Cloud Tank and both Quail Tanks in 2027, recoating of Charlie Tank, Bear Creek Tank, and Spring Tank are scheduled for 2028 in the forecasted 5-year capital improvement program. Full 6 tanks are past due for recoating based on date of construction and district records and should be included in the next iteration of the forecasted 5-year capital improvement program. The remaining 16 tanks are still in the expected beneficial use period of the tank coating life expectancy. We've included a table on page 6 of the packet that organizes all the metal, either bolted steel tanks or welded steel tanks. Currently, we have 26 tanks. We have 4 additional tanks that are forecasted for construction in 2026, 3 of them in 2026 and 1 in 2028. You'll notice there's a bold line at Big Steel Tank, which is tank number 14, and that indicates the date of construction has been within 30 years, and so the tank coating should still be in usable condition. Some of our tanks are past due for coating. For instance, the Brookdale tank and the Blair tank, which are in the current budget, they actually showed up in the 2019-2020 annual budget, and it's just been included in the budget ever since. I know that recently it was decided that we would pursue pipeline projects and the construction of Blue Ridge Tank and some other projects. And for whatever reason, the Brookdale tank and the Blair tank coating was pushed off again. So staff is diligently working, preparing Brookdale tank for recoating this winter or spring. We do have some institutional knowledge about a recent recoating project that we did for the Little Lion tank. Immediately after the CZU fire, we had to recoat Little Lion due to VOC's contamination. So we went out to bid. It's a 250,000 gallon welded steel tank. We received 2 bids. Unified Field Services Corporation gave a bid of $215,578. Superior Tank Solutions gave a bid of $196,227. At the March 18th, 2021 Board of Directors meeting, staff was authorized to enter in a contract with Superior Tank Solutions for the recoating of Little Lion Tank. In addition, the district had costs with inspection services from CSI Services. This cost the district around $30,000. We ended up with 31 daily inspection reports from CSI that detailed a lot of information about the ambient conditions and making sure that it was suitable for application of the new epoxy that we put on the tank and the urethane on the exterior of the tank. All the work was completed in 45 calendar days. We did end up having some change orders. We had a $24,000 change order for some additional parts related to the overflow and some plumbing associated with the tank. And we had a $5,200 change order for caulking around the chime of the tank at the base on the exterior. So the final cost was $227,507 for recoating Little Lion. So as far as the Brookdale tank recoating, we've reached out to Bay Area coating consultants for some guidance on the scope of work that we want to include in the RFP. One thing that staff is focusing on with our bids to contractors is we want to include all the scope of work in the original bid to avoid change orders so that we get the best price, competitive pricing for the work that we're going to do. And it was the recommendation from Bay Area Coating Consultants that we test the exterior of the tank for adhesion to see if we can just encapsulate the existing coating on the outside. And we do have an inspection report. I believe it's from 2019. And it gets into information about the coatings, but we didn't drain the tank fully. It was done with what was accessible from the roof. And we also have a dive report. But Bay Area coating consultants, they recommended that we drain the tank, have them come out and look at the interior of the tank to try to identify if we need additional parts. We can include that in the scope of work. If we need to redo the overflow, for instance, or we did have contact with the former general manager, and he indicated that after the '89 earthquake, there was some underwater welding that was done on the intake draw line. So there might be some repairs that need to be done there. More permanent repairs, I guess, as opposed to what we have now. So it would be good to drain it and have a look on the inside. And then we might end up filling it back up again and then go out to bid for a contract for the recoating. We want to time this during the winter months when there's going to be high surface water flows. Operations staff is already looking at the PRVs and isolation valve to remove the Brookdale tank from the system. And essentially it would operate as part of either the quail zone or it would just be a pass through as opposed to having that. It's a 720,000 gallon water tank. So we won't have that storage capacity while it's offline. So one aspect of the contract we're considering is that we have a tight window for the contractor to complete the work and, you know, possibly enforcing liquidated damages if they're late. So, and alerting all the contractors in the pre-bid meeting to the fact that the schedule is very critical and that we will be enforcing the liquidated damages. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Okay. Thanks for putting this together. This is something that between Director Fultz and myself, we've been asking for staff for 4 years, 5 years.
Well, to be fair, our former operations manager did provide a report at my request in 2019.
Okay.
But nothing was ever done with it as a follow-up.
Right.
So yes, we have been then subsequently we're asking for this.
I wasn't involved in,
Right, I know.
at that point, but having this summary, you know, the simple one page here is useful to us. I thought we had many more tanks, and I thought we were further out of
What-
what compliance than what's,
what-
but
what- I have some
that's
questions.
what I thought. That's what I thought. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. I've got several, but let's start with.
Yeah, so previous guidance on recoding was substantially different than what you were talking about here, Garrett. And I did some research. Of course, you can believe everything you read on the internet, right? But this did come from AWWA, and they're recommending something more in the order of 15 to 20 years. So I was wondering, is there something about our water that doesn't require coatings as often as 15 to 20 years? Because that's what, even in 2019, our staff was saying was the maximum. So 30 years is quite different.
Yeah, so it really depends on a lot of factors,
Sure.
how long the coating will last. I don't know, Cole, do you want to speak to that?
Sounds like a good.
So Cole's here from Superior Tank Solutions. So he works for the company that coated Little Lion, and he's very familiar with tank coatings.
And just for perspective, the reason that for me it was much more of a hair on fire situation is because of the 15 to 20
15 years, that's a big difference.
That's a huge difference than
Yeah.
30. So and given AWWA's recommendations, I'm curious to see what you say.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Oh, go ahead, Stan. I think that-
That's fine.
Go lecture. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Just so you guys know, high level, I'm a local boy. I went to Scotts Valley High School, actually. I graduated in 2012. My wife actually went to San Lorenzo Valley. So, you know, this is my home.
It's a mixed marriage.
Yes, yes, yes. We just had our first newborn, so life is good and full of chaos. So, but yeah, really appreciate you guys' time. Wanted to take a quick second. You know, obviously you asked that question about coding lifespan. I think that's great. That's where the wheel is turning, right? Because I've been in communication with Garrett for about a year now, just back and forth on your guys' plan. You know, I've looked through all the tanks that you guys have, you know, you're built, you know, just generally you have information that these need to be recoded, right? Now, like you said, Bob, AWWA does put in language 15 to 20 years in there. I don't think Garrett's off in understanding or kind of like projecting that, you know, these coatings can last 20 to 30 years, right? At least that's what we've seen across industry standard when we tell people when we sandblast, recoat, and do a good job, you know, that tank coating can probably last more in the 20 to 30 year range. So with that being said, this is where I think standard maintenance comes in, right? And go
Okay,
ahead.
but the 30-year may be for your work after recoding. These tanks are all original install.
Right.
And
right.
so it's very possible that that original install doesn't have the same level of diligence that your work would do.
Absolutely, yeah, especially if they're, you know, bolted tanks are usually factory powder coated and things like that. So the mils of thickness, millimeters of thickness is generally less than a field rehabilitation or a what we call a factory rehabilitation process. There's lots of different things we can do to increase the thickness and things like that. So there's a little bit more protection. A lot of I think when we did the recoating of Lion tank, we also use a product called GalvPak, for example, that has a cathodic sort of property to it that can protect the lower zone. So this is all a science, right? This is all it comes down to is, you know, who's doing the work? Are they doing a superb job? And then are you doing standard maintenance on these tanks, right? Because if you're not doing standard maintenance, I don't care how good of a coating, you know, individual you are, there's always going to be issues, right? You're always going to see areas where, you know, delamination, for bolted tanks, you see a lot of hardware start to rust and corrode, right? And so, you know, for us, Superior Tank Solutions, you know, we build 300 bolted tanks a year. We build 50 to 100 welded tanks a year. And we also want to be an A to Z asset management company to where, you know, we do cathodic protection, right?
Okay, I get that. I think what I would like to see is if you want to use 30 years, maybe we use it for the Little Lion tank. But I'm not convinced that we can use 30 years for the factory installs.
So, to that point, what evidence do we have, if any? Because one tank isn't
Yeah.
a good data set. But what evidence do we have here, to Bob's point, is our water chemistry, that much different, that it's better, that says, here's the condition of these and here's what needs to be done. Not only for the ones that are 30 years out, but how about for some of the ones that are in that range? I'm hearing 20 to 30. Bob heard 15 before, but in that range also to some of these other ones. And I'm not talking about a tank drain if we don't have to do that. But what other
A dive.
means?
Yeah.
A dive or some other visual
Video.
camera or exactly,
Yes.
video, to be able to say, here's what this one is like. So that's one. And then the other is, how many of these leak? And is that what we're ultimately trying to prevent?
Well, so steel tanks will last basically forever if properly maintained or close
Yeah.
to it.
Right.
What we're
But-
trying to do is avoid a situation where they get so deteriorated that they effectively have to be replaced.
Agreed. So I would think leaking, it seems, would be kind of a first.
Yeah, I don't know that any of the steel tanks are leaking. I haven't heard that.
I
Okay.
think if
The
they get to the
redwood
point where they're
tanks-
leaking, you're probably looking at replacing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do
It
we
depends on
then?
the kind of tank that's leaking. Bolted steel could be another reason for leaking.
Seeping,
But,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
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 if it's a welded steel, yeah, you're in trouble.
Right.
Anyway, my only point in this, not to belabor it horribly, is that I don't know that 30 years is a blanket statement that you can apply across the board without additional
Yeah.
evidence, at least for me, without the additional evidence you're talking about. The second thing is just from my historical view, not just my time in the board, but before that, tank recoatings always drop off the priority list, period. Every single time. There's always something that happens to drop them off.
It's maintenance. And it's not as flashy.
It's maintenance and it's difficult for public sector entities to do maintenance, no question, even private sector, but so this goes to the policy about where we're spending money in capital. And that is establishing a policy by the priority policy by which tank coatings go to the top as they are needed based on the maintenance cycle for that particular asset. And that becomes part of a tracking mechanism, database, whatever that you guys are doing. As of right now, we only have funding for about half of the 5-year capital improvement project. So when we talk about being on the capital budget for out years, I am completely unconvinced that that will ever happen. The money simply is not there at this point in time. So we need to make sure that we're not setting expectations such that those expectations can't be fulfilled. And this agenda item unfortunately does that. And I'm concerned about that. Now, if there's some way that prices will come in, if we bundle a bunch of these together and things come down to, 150,000 or so, okay. But I am unconvinced that it's going to be below $250,000 each.
The tank.
That's basically what our previous guys were saying was 250 to 350 is the range that they gave us before. So that's another area that we need to make sure we're just crystal clear on is where does that line get drawn for that 19 million? And relative to, the reimbursement strategy that we're going to talk about tomorrow, does that impact where that line is going to be drawn? And to me, right now, it's not clear. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was just data management, just really quickly. And I sent you a note about this. For what I want to know is when the tank was actually built, when it was last inspected, and when it was last coated. Those are the three elements that as a board member are important to me. And because then you can do a comparison of the years and see where you are. Conflating those dates is not a good data management practice. And if the costs actually come in at $250,000, and by the way, cost to me is all in, that includes any inspection, dive, repair, what have you, not just the coating.
Yeah, it's not just the two and a
Not-
quarter
That's right.
cost.
It
was
might, it sounded to me like 250 to 275.
Yeah, I was adding up 250 at least. So it's everything,
Yeah.
including whatever specs we need to put together if we go outside for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It's all in
having
cost.
a specialized inspector is a good idea for the district to make sure that the coating is properly installed.
Not debating that or disagreeing with that, but the cost is the all in. Yeah, it's not
And-
just the contractor.
And I shared with you what staff had provided back in 2019,
Yeah,
or actually maybe it's 2020, early 2020. So if we can address those, I mean, the tank coating to me is one of the most critical things that we have neglected in this district for many, many years. So getting back on track with this is really a good thing, and thank you for doing that. We just need to make sure that we're structuring this in a way that we know what we have to do. We inspect it to make sure that the dates are proper and that we know where that line's being drawn in the budget.
I might interject. So, this is exactly what I think Garrett and I have been talking about that you guys need, right? I did see your guys' ballpark numbers for how much you have budgeted for each tank. And the reality of it is you're right, you don't have any idea exactly how much each one's gonna be, right? Because the degree of failure in a tank could mean we're just doing pressure washing on the exterior and then we're doing an overcoat. It could mean that we have to fully sandblast it. It could be that there's lead on the tank and then you gotta fully encapsulate the tank before you blast it, right? There's so many different variables that could hike up the cost of these projects. And that is why, in my opinion, having someone like us who, maybe at least my proposition was gonna be talking to you guys about what a management program looks like. And I know that you guys brought up maybe cost savings that could come from, blanketing them all together. And I can't realistically come in front of you today and say, this is absolutely going to save you money without first going and looking at the tanks, right? So my proposition.
So let's hold off on the recommendations
Yes.
for that. I appreciate the idea, but talk to these folks
Got it.
first
Well,
and then
And
begin to float.
And that may
Let
be a
them
bid process.
chew on it for a while.
And that may be a bid process as well. Right.
Correct. Because I don't want to, feel
Absolutely. No,
that we're asking staff to go sole source to a provider. So,
Well, I'm not looking for any sort of sole source opportunity.
Right.
Garrett and I have been speaking a lot and, he's in agreement that if you had me come out and maybe do a few inspections for free so that you could get a
So-
state of the union in some of these tanks, that would be helpful and it'd provide more opportunity for discussion between everyone
Right.
as a whole.
right. And we as a committee, nor as the full board
Yeah.
would make a decision on whether that's, work with staff, take that idea to them. They can bring it to us once they see that, yeah, this is viable. So, yeah. Like that. So you good?
Yeah, I'm
with
done.
your questions, and I'd like to go to the rest of the committee members and see what other questions we have. I don't know whether they'll be for you or so.
I just had a question about, you're talking about we're talking about this maintenance, and I agree, that's a very critical part of ensuring these tanks make the long haul. How frequently should they be inspected? And what is involved in an inspection?
I'd like that question here to, I believe to Jesse.
Right now, we don't have a policy on how often we inspect our tanks.
Oh,
Should we?
okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
Should we?
That's all part of this whole thing.
Yes.
That's all part of this whole
So
thing.
there's a standard, so the AWWAD 101 standard for inspecting still tanks, standpipes, reservoirs, and elevated
35.
tanks for water storage. Indicates all water tanks should be thoroughly inspected at intervals of not more than 5
Yeah,
years.
3 to 5 is what I read online.
Right, but we don't have that as part of our policy.
No.
Okay, well, should we?
Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah.
Should we?
Yeah, it should.
Yeah.
We didn't do 5 year, I'll be honest, we didn't do 5 year time, but we did every time.
Okay, but at least it would be something of a policy. Right now, we don't have anything. So when do we inspect these? To Bob's point, having this
Looks like you used the date.
expanded, the table expanded a little bit, to be able to include that information in there would inform the committee, the board, but would also be, I think, good for just tracking purposes for the rest of staff to see, oh,
And to be fair, if you use the 2020 report, most of the tanks were inspected in 2016, 2018, or 2019 to some level. It's not clear what the standard was for the inspection.
okay.
If I could add on to that too, I mean, our personal belief is if 5 years is how often each tank is getting touched, I mean, that's, you know, you could be doing more too. A visual inspection goes a long way, and even just sticking your head in the tank, taking high quality photos, there's a lot that you can tell what's going on in a tank. And whether it's getting to the end of its lifespan, if it's very close, et cetera, just from that, you know, we have ROVs and divers that we can use too, but that's kind of our thought process is every 3 to 5 years, that tank should either be dived, ROV'd, which is a robotic vehicle inspection.
Yeah.
Drained and washed out, like Brookdale is being, and inspected formally, especially if it's bolted, because the hardware is gonna go.
And I'll add to that too. We do have a quarterly tank site and tank inspection program where we go out to each tank every quarter. It's more of a tank, a site inspection and a sanitary survey. We're looking at screens. We're checking the gaskets on the hatches, but we do poke our heads in there and
Okay,
take a look at the condition of the metal.
so something,
Yeah, so we do have a quarterly
Right.
tank inspection program.
right.
It's not a comprehensive inspection.
Yeah. Anything else, Bill?
No.
Okay. Mr. Landy?
Two things. One, I'm a little confused. We are coating the outside of the tanks,
Correct.
Well, and the inside.
so,
And the inside.
but we do an inspection on the inside.
So on the inside, you have a low water level and a high water level.
Right.
And so as people take showers and wash their dishes, the tank level drops. And then at a certain point, the pump turns on and refills the tank.
Right.
So in that area and also above the high water level is where you probably see some of the worst corrosion.
All right, but we do inspect the inside.
We, like you mentioned in 2018-19, we'd have some dive inspections, a few dive inspections. Not all the tanks were.
Yeah, my experience is coating the outside. You still can have corrosion and other problems inside, which would push the coating out and possibly cause leaks. I don't know, okay?
Well, I would say
My background is quite different, so what, that was, all right?
If there's any confusion, that this was to coat.
I'm
both
sorry?
If there was any confusion, this was to coat both interior and exterior of the tank.
The other comment I wanted to make, and I think it was already made, is it looks like the priorities on scheduling here were based on the dates that the tanks were made or installed, rather than on what conditions we know about the specific tanks. Have they leaked? Have they had problems? When were they recoated, et cetera? And it sort of looks, I think that was already brought up, like that we need some kind of a feedback with more information as to why tank one is more important than tank two, et cetera. Even though one may be older than the other, it may be in better shape.
Yeah, so Brookdale tank and Blair tank have been on the list for to be recoated since 2019.
Yep.
So for that reason, it was at the top of my list when I got here in 2023 to fund that and not only, execute, get it
Right.
done.
Yeah.
The other tanks, so we have a total of 8 tanks that are on our list right now. Those are all, well past any recommended service life for the coating. And it was in collaboration with operations. Operations is doing these quarterly inspections. I believe it's every 3 years. We do a sanitary survey with the state water board. And so they have concerns about some of our tanks and they want certain things to happen. And that is indicated in the deficiencies list of the sanitary report. And so some tanks that were mentioned in our sanitary survey were put on the list. So that's how we came up with that.
Okay.
Okay. To the priority issue that's being brought up, given the capacity of the Lion tank at 3 million gallon, and it being lower on the list than I see Quail 1 and Quail 2, just as significantly smaller capacity, but they're higher on the list. Is there reason to consider Lion at a,
It's based, I think, on the quality of the steel and deterioration,
okay,
where it's a little bit better shape than the ones on top of this, even though it has a lot more capacity. I understand,
okay, so yes, there is judgment
Yeah.
put into that then that says, no, we don't need that one, we need this. Okay.
To Ken's point, his last question, staff is looking at.
Right.
The actual priority, it's not set just based on the year it was built. There might be a newer tank that has lower, has more issues, and we're looking into that.
Okay. So I wanted to see if any public comments on this at this point.
Bruce Holloway from Boulder Creek. I guess I was surprised at the number of tanks on that list. I thought there were more like 45 tanks. And the list has 30. So I guess, are tanks getting consolidated, so there's fewer and fewer tanks? So what I was thinking before, when I walked in today, I was thinking, we've got about 45 tanks, and they need to get recoated every 15 years, is what I was thinking. That means you have to, in the long run, you gotta do
A year. Yeah.
But the list looks like it's 30 tanks, and if they last 30 years, you only have to do 1 tank recoating in the long run. So I guess I'm really surprised. It doesn't sound like quite as bad of an issue as I thought it was. So anyway, just something about the number of tanks.
Yeah, so some of our tanks right now are poly tanks. We have concrete tanks. And then we also have the steel tanks.
And redwood tanks.
Well, yeah, we do have redwood tanks.
Those.
Hopefully, we are replacing those soon.
Yeah.
Some of,
So
some of
Steel tanks,
It's like 30 steel and then
Yeah.
15 of the others.
right?
Okay,
mystery meat.
and they have completely different issues on code. It's not steel, so they just don't.
Yeah,
Poly tanks don't need to be.
fiberglass, yeah, it doesn't.
Thank you.
All right.
Mark, would it be possible for me to make one more comment? Okay.
Briefly,
Yes, I just
because I
wanted
want to move on
Make
to,
sure you guys are understanding, at least for the conversations Garrett and I had. I do want you to know that I'm going to first, and
Right.
seem very on board with this idea of he's proposing to do a few inspections, get a state of the union of these tanks.
Right.
The reality of it is we can't have conversations to show you guys the cost savings benefit unless you're willing to talk to us as well. And
Right.
so hopefully you guys would allow us the opportunity to at least do that. Come with Garrett, and then at least maybe we could have some other conversation,
again,
break that down.
it's, your conversations need to be with the staff. This committee, this group, and the board's not gonna say yay or nay to anything that you're proposing.
We're neither,
Of
we're
course.
neither prohibiting you from doing it nor telling you to do it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's
So
just a lot to
please,
put on.
please go have,
Garrett's shoulders to
um,
communicate the coding
but
aspect.
please go talk to staff. I'm not saying Garrett, I'm saying staff.
Fair.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Then, we have no, recommended motion on this, but staff has heard, comments. Expanding the data, the presentation that we have. And I think looking at other, means to see, at least on some of these tanks, a sampling of what kind of conditions are there out there. So, okay. And I think at some point you can bring this back, but given that it's been years since this isn't a burning issue to bring back next month, I think. So, okay. All right. Moving on then. next item on here is liquidated damages that are part of district contracts. So you're
Yeah,
leading this one also?
yes, sir. So this is standard language in our construction contracts. It provides provisions that requires the bidders to complete contract work within a specified time limit. The means and methods of the contractor are left to them as far as how much staff they want to have at any particular time, if they want to run 2 crews simultaneously, or if they want to have less people at a certain time. And so from our point of view, we tell them we want this done in 300 calendar days or 180 calendar days. And it's up to the contractor to figure out how he's going to get it done in that specified time period. So in our contract, we have in Article 1 of the general conditions, contract time, the number of work days for completion of the work or the date upon which the work shall be completed and ready for use by the district as stated in the executed contract agreement. In section 0020, notice of inviting bids, we will specifically indicate the amount of calendar days that we want the work to be completed by. And this is started from the date of the notice to proceed. So we'll get all the bids, we'll go to the board, we'll make a recommendation that we want to award the contract. We send out a notice of award to the contractor. This starts a 10-day time limit where the contractor has to execute the contract. Once the contract is executed, the district has 60 days to issue the notice to proceed. Once we send out the notice to proceed, that starts contract time. Now, there's other areas in the contract that gets into time and the time of performance, extension of contract time, delays, and liquidated damages. So liquidated damages is a fixed amount of money that the contractor has to pay the district for every day that they are delayed in completing the work. To my knowledge, the district has not enforced liquidated damages on our contracts, but we do include this requirement in the contract language. We can adjust the amount of the liquidated damages if we wanted to reflect that it's very critical that the contract time is adhered to. Or I've heard of on a Caltrans project where they actually offered to pay the contractor a bonus if they finish the contract early. So with that, we can talk about liquidated damages and I'll take any questions you have.
Okay. For the rest of the committee, the public, I thought that this was important to bring in front of this committee. My experience as a construction project manager, whenever I was recommending to a client to have liquidated damages in a contract, there's a cost associated with that. The contractors are putting some percentage, at least in the private sector, there's some percentage of an adder on a contract because they know that there's that risk there in taking that work. So I don't know what that percentage was. It's probably at the low end of several percent. But if, to your knowledge, we've never used that before.
We're paying for it.
But we're paying something for this on every project that we do. Then, that's where I have the question: should we or shouldn't we? And I'm not saying yes or no, but it's something that I wanted the rest of the committee just to hear kind of that thought process that I've had from my experience in the private sector, at least, and some on the public also. So with that, I wanted to open it up to the rest of the committee members. I have other questions that I'll pose after we're done. So Bob?
Well, we're not East Bay Mud, right? So in terms of size, it's for Apple. So,
Mhm.
you know, we kind of are in this world where, you know, in some ways the contractors are bigger than we are. Right? I mean, most of them.
In a lot of cases.
Yeah, and you know, um, unless there's some really critical reason that something has to be done in a particular time, plus or minus, you know, some number of days, and if we've never used it, I don't know why we would have it in. Um, maybe for something like the Felton Highway 9 situation, there's a particular reason because we got to stay within Caltrans. But for the work that's being done over in West Park, does that have a liquidated damages? And are we, and do we care if it
Yeah.
went into September versus August? Is
So
it a situation where we're trying to make sure the neighbors don't get
the
ticked?
work on Highway 236 is tied to a grant, and the
Mhm.
grant has a requirement that the work be completed by December of 2025.
Okay,
So it is a critical
Okay.
timeline for that project.
but did we put in the contract December 2025 or November or something like that? Or did
So
we put in at
It's
August?
established from the date of the notice to proceed. And so based on the issuance of the notice to proceed for that project, they have to complete all the work by October.
October?
Okay.
Okay.
I believe
So that
October.
there's some period of time between their completion date when we to Caltrans have to have it done.
With the grant, yes,
Yeah, with the grant.
yes.
And where are they in that work, for example? I'm just using this
Yeah,
as
so
an
the
example. kind of
contractor has
explore thing.
completed the mainline installation up to the bridges, and we have submitted to Caltrans the evaluation of their bridges, showing that everything is
Hunky dory.
hunky dory, and we're waiting for Caltrans to green light us. And it could come this week or it could come next week,
Okay.
and we are bugging them weekly to
But
find out when are they going to give us.
yeah, and maybe daily at some point starting next week. But so in that case, you know, maybe Anderson Pacific factored this in their bid. The risk sounds like it was pretty minimal to them, right? Because you said October, they probably knew they were going to get it done in August or early September based on the nature of the work and the neighborhood and the fact that it's pretty flat, et cetera.
The current schedule we had from Anderson Pacific before they ran out of work was they would repave in September.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean,
So most likely their judgment, it's a low risk that liquidated damages get assessed.
Yeah.
So it's a low factor
yeah.
of a cost add.
Unless they have a standard that they say, if we see
Yes.
the word liquidated damages, we
Yeah.
add X%
And
regardless.
I don't know whether contractors have that or not. I've not been a contractor, but simply.
Yeah. So grants usually have a deadline.
Right.
There's obviously neighborhood issues in terms of impacts to neighborhoods, particularly on narrow streets. And as we move from mainline pipe to more neighborhood pipe, which we're going to be doing now that we've completed most of the big, you know, 9, 236, et cetera, for at least for now. That's a factor. How long are we in the neighborhoods, impeding traffic and making people do unnatural acts? Seems like those are all things we'd want to be concerned about. That is, we wouldn't want to have a contractor do what they do a lot of times in home construction. They start work and you don't see them for 2 months. Right. Because they got another job, bigger, more profitable, what have you. And they'll come back later at a different time.
I think it's good to have it in there in case we want to enforce it. Cause then we can. If we don't have anything in there, it might be something we should talk to legal counsel about. Is it possible we can remove this requirement?
Or do it on a case by case basis.
On
Yeah.
a case by case basis.
Makes
Yeah.
more sense. I
Yeah,
think.
because you were pointing out to us 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago. Oh, on the tank. That is important for us to get that back online.
Yes.
And it does cause operational issues and other. So that I think is justifiable to have liquidated damages that are paid enough that contractor pays attention to that, and if we pay some percentage for that project, but fine, it's.
But let's use another one, different one, Highland Tank. So we got 3 polys up there right
Yeah.
now.
So.
Do we really need
Yeah.
liquidated damages?
That's
Exactly.
another one that's funded by a grant.
Is it?
We have a deadline of December 2026 to complete that.
That's pretty low risk though, man.
That's
Don't
the
you
way it's
think?
out there. We have it on
Depends on
bid
when
for
we
now.
started.
It's a 300-day contract. The bids are due September 26th. If we're able to award the contract.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
October,
I don't want us as a committee
No,
here
no, I
to go
get it.
through and
No, no, I-
assess.
okay,
Take the comments that you're getting here and think about it. And to Jason's comment of maybe on a case by case basis. Yeah, so.
No, for me, it comes down to deadlines and neighborhood impacts, right? In
Right.
terms of getting people in and out.
Right.
I'd also say that there's other costs that the district has when work extends a long period of time. If we
Mhm.
have a outside inspector.
Yeah.
Their costs increase, and
Right.
so it's
Right.
good for the district to have projects completed in a timely manner.
We have a construction inspector, don't we, on staff?
We have a construction inspector on staff. If we're doing more than, 3
Right.
projects, 4 projects, 5 projects, at some point, we will need outside help or additional inspector on staff.
Okay, when we get to that point, make me very happy.
So Highland Tank bids are due in September. Redwood and Echo Park bids, the bid package should be done in November. And that's part of the same grant, has to be completed by December 2026. So we will have 3 tank projects in construction at the same time. We're
Yeah.
also looking at P-Vine, getting that going. And getting pump house fire hardening, roof replacements.
Right,
There's no shortage of projects.
right. But
Brookdale recoating.
to the liquidated damages aspect of, what this item is talking about.
Maybe some of those aren't as critical. I don't-
Listen to what,
Yeah.
on a case by case basis, what I heard Jason say. So, Bob, again, okay, Ken?
Okay, I am a firm believer in Murphy's Law. Got close to 50 years of living with it. Anybody who bids a contract and doesn't put in their bid contingency for when something goes wrong, you don't want to deal with them. At the same time, if we do have this clause in there and we do not enforce it, contractors will very quickly learn they can get away with anything they want. I'm not picking on any individual contractor, okay? So I think it's important for us to have a clause of this type. It's also important for there's something, and I didn't read the detail in there about something that's out of their control, an earthquake, the weather, all right,
Yeah, those
that they're not held liable for that if it's something they could not control. I don't know if that's clear in any of our contracts or not. But if I were bidding on something where an earthquake or a fire or something could impact my ability to perform to schedule, I would want that in there. So I think it is important that we have something that it is reasonable, but that we do enforce it. Otherwise, why even have it? And then we're leaving ourselves wide open because we schedule secondary events, secondary programs based on these expected completions. And if they don't complete on time, then it is costing the district time and money. And if that's the case, we should be able to collect part of it or some of it.
Okay.
I'm a pessimist.
Okay. What do other water districts do regarding LDs?
What did
What
Indian
was-
Wells do?
Was your,
Yeah, so
what
we,
was your-
we had liquidated damages in all of our contracts
Mhm.
and we too never sought them out, even when contracts ran over. I mean, there's force majeure things, there was, acts of God, there was things that the district did,
right,
change orders that caused the contracts to go long.
right,
Even when it was necessarily the contractor's issue that caused the contract to go long, then they never sought it.
and a fairly recent project for us was the Fall Creek Fish Ladder improvement. We brought a contractor on, staff did the appropriate due diligence of that contractor, somebody that we hadn't dealt with before. Yes, they got good recommendations. Contractor fell flat on, they couldn't get out of the gate. They couldn't begin. So we spent a year just getting them off of the project. I don't believe we assessed any liquidated damages against them.
We were talking.
Correct.
Right. But we didn't do it. And if that failure of a contractor didn't cause us to go,
I think they bid the project at a certain price and we ended up having to rebid the project for a higher price.
we did, but if we didn't go after them for liquidated damages, then will we ever?
Well, you know, this, I mean, this reminded me of a military thing, right? Where you, to encourage the others, right? You have to have somebody that gets punished. That might have been one that we should have pursued to make sure people knew that the liquidated damages really was serious when they screw up that bad.
It's costly from a legal perspective to go get that money, but if we don't,
Sometimes you have to spend that money.
everybody here.
But having the clause there is the incentive for the contractor to make sure that they can finish the job on time.
Not if you don't enforce it.
It's carrot and what's it called? Carrot and the stick, you know.
But if
Having it
they
there is
know
important.
but if they know that we never
but-
use it,
But it has to get used when there is a
they
problem.
know we never use it. Yeah. To legitimate contractor failures, not the acts of God, change orders that
Right.
we agreed with other outside agencies like Caltrans not letting the construction work move ahead. But if it's true contractor failures, then yeah.
So, now we have a general manager on full time that's knows what he's doing and all that. I think our reliance on legal should go down. I'm not a big fan of lawsuits, but there are times when they're absolutely necessary in order to send a message and also to get what's rightfully ours.
Right.
And that would have been one that I think we should have gone after.
But that's one example or one significant example that I can cite over the last number of years.
that the only other things I think that have come up that have been a little annoying is a contractor that refused to and deliberately, in my opinion, play by the rules of when they could start work. They were reprimanded over and over again, and
Yes.
they gave us the middle finger.
And they just continued to say.
Yeah.
And
So
it was a neighborhood pipeline project that we did.
yeah, and so those are the
they-
kinds of things that absolutely they need to be
But the
punished.
liquidated damages
Doesn't
doesn't
co-
apply to
doesn't
that
cover
because
that.
we didn't have anything that says you go outside of these.
Yeah.
Work conditions. They were just. Would we use that contractor again? I would certainly hope not.
I think we are. So,
Yeah.
but I would say contracts should also be, particularly again, in neighborhood situations.
Yeah.
Contracts that are dealing with neighborhoods, if there is a time period on when they can be working, that needs to have a penalty associated with it, or
Yeah.
some mechanism by which we can say, hey, this is gonna stop.
Yeah.
And mean it. And if that means dragging their CEO in here,
Yes, yes.
whatever, but that kind of thing can't continue.
But that's a past project.
Yep.
That was significant to us and we heard about it several times
Oh,
from
God,
neighbors
over and over.
in the board meetings. So,
To that point, I mean, most contracts are awarded to responsible bidders, so if they're not being responsible, they don't qualify.
yes.
One more comment. I think what's important is not to have to use this feature, but to be able to monitor the progress of a project. Now we're talking difficulty when you have a lot of projects going on at the same time and limited resources. I'm fully aware of that. But to monitor and to look at the progress and say, hey, this contractor is slipping. And going to the contractor and say, there's a really good chance you are not going to be able to finish this project for the schedule you have committed to? And are you aware that there will be penalties? What are you going to do now to make sure that does not happen? It's program management, and I'm fully aware of limited I've done program management, very fully aware of limited resources with multiple projects going on. So you again have to prioritize which ones are gonna be the big hitters and all. But I think the purpose of that is not to plan on using it, but to make sure the contractors are aware that they need to do what is necessary so they don't get caught with that.
Okay.
My 4 cents.
And maybe one other aspect, in the, bid package. You pointed out that the, standard boilerplate sections in there that this is discussed. If a project is significant schedule-wise, just describing that aspect in the upfront, notice to bidders or similar that, well, this is significant to the district for the following reasons on schedule, such as the tank recoding. But okay, I think we've heard enough from committee now. Any comment from public member on this? I see none online, nobody here. So no action that we were seeking to take on this, simply a discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on then.
Project, future agenda items.
Yeah,
Agenda
future
items.
agenda items.
Yeah.
You had two slated for the next couple of months.
Yeah, we're talking about project paving in September.
I definitely want to talk about that.
Same here. Yes, same here.
And then an update to the district standard specifications in October.
Yay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
And
And
then,
I think looking
Okay.
2 months out like this is reasonable for projecting, you know, what else is coming up. I don't think we needed to schedule at the beginning of the year everything that you're going to talk about every month during.
yeah, so we still have November and December.
Right.
Where we can
Right.
select something that of
Okay.
topic of interest.
Okay. And I hope that these comments that you're getting from board, from public members, is significant enough that, oh, maybe we need to rethink, or maybe we should be going. So it's not just
Yeah,
information coming this way to us, that it is, you know, some significance.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
staff is open to enforcing liquidated damages if that's below the district, you know. And updating the tank list to have the inspection dates.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Okay, all right.
I had a question about whether or not the committee is going to be responsible or involved in reviewing any of the bids that come back in. In the past, the committee had done that. It's not necessarily a policy thing, is the only thing.
Yeah,
And so I'm wondering if that is something, and this would apply to other committees as well, particularly environmental, probably some in budget. Are the committees going to be looking at responses to bid requests going forward or not?
I think that's staff dependent on, do you want input in particular from 2 board members before it goes to the full board? Because in some cases from a committee, you get comments that say, oh, we're not ready yet to take this to the full board, when it was, you know, fairly soon anticipated that, yes, it was going to be on a board meeting. And it's, no, delay a month, go back and get the additional information that's before it can. So I don't think as a standard that that bids need to come in front of us. But if there is something that's significant enough that, oh, this is going to have a lot of questions.
I raise it because of a topic that's going to be on tomorrow's agenda. It's not engineering, but on environmental, where I think a more thorough discussion might have been helpful. We're going to have it tomorrow. but it might have been more helpful to have a committee.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really the only thing is where do you want to spend the time?
Right. Okay, I don't have a,
Yeah, I don't think it's a one size fits all.
no,
Right.
it isn't, it isn't. Yeah. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, public comment.
Oh, yeah, anything else? Public wise, I see nobody online. Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
We are.
Okay, 4 minutes beyond. Good, okay, thanks.
Thank you.